How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'd planned for this MOC to come out on May the 4th, but clearly that didn't happen. But alas, here we are a month and a half later with a new MOC building video.
Sorry I'm late, it's just like this new schedule's totally confusing.
It's bright and sunny here in Minnesota, so it's only fitting we travel to Hoth to keep me humbled for what's to come later in the year.
He's visiting from Hoth.
I don't know why they call it Hoth. They should call it Cold.
Okay, settle down.
Hoth was a remote and icy planet, most notably hosting the secret rebel base known as Echo Base. I've always been fascinated by Echo Base, and I love seeing other people's LEGO MOC interpretations of it. One of my favorite Star Wars sets as a kid was this Hoth Rebel base set from 2007, so I was kind of inspired a bit by this. Here's the sketch of my base. As you can see, this will be a very large MOC. The color scheme will mostly be white with some light aqua acting as the accent color. All white is a bit too boring. I think it needs some color. I really want this MOC to stand out amongst all the other plain white Hoth MOCs we see. Alright, enough talking, let's start building.
Set your course for the Hoth system.
I started by placing down some 16x16 and 8x16 plates for the base. I then connected them with some 2x4 bricks. I then flipped it over and added some 2x16 plates to secure the base even more. This also gives me the perfect depth so I can add some modified bricks with studs on the side around the top of the base and have them be flush with the ground. I then added some white plates all around the outside onto the modified bricks. Next, I got together all the white slope parts I wanted to use for the snowy landscape. I first started using plates to roughly build the shape of the landscaping around the outside of the MOC. Once I had that shape, I went back over it with the slope pieces. Here's what I have so far. I started adding a layer of wedge plates onto the bricks, and then some tiles and rounded tiles onto those plates. I also added a little clump of light aqua. This is where I will add a spot to see inside the base. It will almost be like a window you can look in. I plan on having some barracks or dorms here for the rebel pilots to sleep in. These rounded light bluish gray bricks work great for the border of the interior. For the walls of the base, the technique I used most was stacking these snot bricks and building off of them. They are so easy to use. The next part was one of the most challenging parts of the MOC. I needed to build an angled wall for the base entrance. I'm not sure why I chose to make this part at an angle, but let's give it a shot. I used a clip piece and a bar piece and lots of cheese slopes that will line up with each other perfectly. Well, almost perfectly. I then used these light bluish gray macaroni pieces for the rounded door. I really like the unique effect they give. I also of course had to add a control panel because how else would they get the door open? No door handles in Star Wars. Next, I started working on the top of the interior window by building up more snowy rock work. Building a landscape like this is so challenging and pretty tiring to do. It can just be very tedious, and I always want it to blend together really well. It can definitely test my patience at times, especially when things break. This next part, where I was building above the door, was also really hard. Building up at this angle was super confusing, and I definitely made a mistake doing this. Something was off or not connected properly because this caused issues later on in the build process. I must have done my LEGO math wrong. In these videos it looks like I'm building things a lot faster than I really do. I probably spent hours trying to figure this all out. I still think it looked pretty good though. Next, I started working on the large ladder and surrounding snowy walls that will allow the rebel troopers to get above to the top trenches. Here you can definitely see me trying out a lot of different variations for how to build up this angled wall some more. Again, this took way longer than it looks like. The last bit I needed to work on in this corner of the MOC was to finish the ground. I added some icicles and patches of ice using the light aqua. I used lots of rounded and regular tiles. I forgot to record myself here, but I worked a lot on the second interior spot and built up the landscape a lot on top of it. I also added a second smaller ladder to get up to the main trench. I also worked on my Hoth dish tower turret. That's a really long name, but I think it looks pretty good so far. With that all said, let's queue up another time lapse. The front side of the MOC is pretty much done now. I also started working on the main trench that the Rebels soldiers will be in. I tiled off the ground and added some crates and wires and other little details. The turret looks nice here too. Alright, I think it's time we start working on the interior. Let's work on the medical chamber first. I made the Bacta tank for Luke. I tried to make it as small as possible but also still detailed enough. Next, I needed to work on the floor and the walls. I used these window panes as the walls. I also added a little control panel, medical droid, and a bed. Now it's time to work on the part of the MOC I was most excited to work on, which is the barracks. I needed to figure out the design I wanted to use for the beds. This is the final design I came up with. I really liked the blue tiles as the bedding, and the little shelves in the back. I was able to fit a lot of detail into a really small space. I plan on making 4 cubbies for the pilots to sleep in. Here are the 4 beds all together. I added a ladder for the pilots to get up to the top bunks. I absolutely love how this turned out and all the little details in it. I can already tell this is going to be my favorite part of the MOC. Now it's time to attach this to the base. I started by placing down some plates first. I also added some lockers for the pilots. I have everything attached and it's actually pretty stable. It's time to start building the top of the MOC now, so let's queue up another time lapse. I love the planet Hoth because it strikes a perfect balance between feeling grounded and foreign. The icy landscapes and harsh conditions remind me of the cold winters and rugged terrain I experience in Minnesota, creating a sense of familiarity with a hint of otherworldly wonder. This juxtaposition between the known and the alien makes Hoth a truly captivating and memorable planet in the Star Wars universe. I worked on this little kitchen and hangout area as the last part of the interior. There's a lot to love here, but I just wasn't super happy with it still, and it felt a bit out of place. I also was just getting tired building here and decided to scrap this entire room, which I rarely do. I ended up using this space to add support for the rest of the MOC. The last part of the MOC I needed to build was just the snowy top and adding the custom ATST I built in my last video. Now that the ATST legs are attached, I just need to snap in the head and go around the MOC and finish adding the minifigures. I then take pictures in my Lightbox and edit them in Photoshop.